Know the notary laws and safeguard your notary business. Introducing the book, Notary Law and Liability, Understanding State Regulations, Insurance, and Avoiding UPL by Derek Spruill. What you don't know can destroy the notary business you've been building. Get your copy of Notary Law and Liability by Derek Spruill from Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Books of Million, Bookshop.org, Mobile Notary by DerekSpruill.com, or download from Kindle today.
You know, there used to be a time in this industry, and honestly, it really wasn't even that long ago, when securing a steady stream of loan signings was, well, it was fundamentally a localized human-to-human endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was completely different.
Right. I mean, it was about walking into a title agency, shaking hands with the lead escrow officer, maybe dropping off a box of assorted pastries, and really just proving your reliability face-to-face.
Yeah, the classic pastry drop-off.
Exactly. It was a relationship business built entirely on eye contact and small talk. You were the trusted neighborhood professional. But if you look at the landscape we're operating in right now, that entire paradigm has been quietly and completely dismantled.
Oh, without a doubt. It's gone.
The warm handshake has been completely replaced by cold algorithms. The pastries, they've been replaced by fractional data points on an API dashboard.
Which is a stunning evolution when you really step back and look at it.
It is. We are now operating inside this highly scrutinized, fully digitized ecosystem where your livelihood, like your next order, your entire revenue stream, isn't determined by a friendly smile anymore.
No, not at all.
It's determined by a microscopic metric calculated by a machine in a fraction of a second.
And frankly, it is ruthless by design.
Right.
The entire architecture of the real estate settlement and notarization industry has fundamentally shifted from that local relationship model to a national automated supply chain model.
Which changes everything about how we operate.
Exactly. We are no longer viewed merely as independent professionals witnessing signatures, The institutions view us as critical high-risk nodes in a heavily regulated mortgage pipeline.
A pipeline that leaves no room for error. Welcome to Notary Knowledge. I am Marylyn, your host. And sitting across from me is our resident industry expert.
Always glad to be here.
For those of you listening, we are treating this session together like a high-level mastermind. You are an experienced professional. You already know the basic mechanical functions of, how to verify an ID and stamp a piece of paper.
Right. We're definitely not here to read you a basic manual.
No, we are taking a thoughtfully reflective, macro-level approach to the sophisticated realities of this business from a national perspective, meaning we're looking at the overarching federal and technological trends, and we're intentionally excluding the specific statutory eccentricities of California for this particular conversation.
Exactly, because this session is entirely about elevating your practice by really understanding the invisible machinery that dictates your workflow, your reputation, and ultimately your revenue.
Yeah, because if you don't understand the algorithm,
you are entirely at its mercy.
So true. And to make sure you are getting the absolute maximum return on your time investment in this mastermind, we highly encourage you to draw on the insights we've systematically shared in our prior episodes.
There is a really deep continuity to this business.
There is. It's a compounding effect to this knowledge. The professionals who actually thrive are the ones who connect the dots across all these different operational layers.
Oh, 100%.
Furthermore, if you are truly serious about scaling your operation and, escaping the feast or famine cycle, you really need to purchase the Notary Knowledge books by Derek Spruill.
They are an absolute masterclass.
They really are. Without exaggeration, a masterclass in navigating this highly specific space. Also, please take a moment right now to rate the show, subscribe, and share the podcast with your network.
Because, the algorithms that govern podcast visibility are just as real as the ones governing your notary assignments.
Exactly. And we want to keep this community growing with high-caliber professionals.
The more we disseminate this high-level strategy among our peers, the stronger and more resilient the entire independent profession becomes against institutional pressure.
Which brings us directly to our mission for this session. We are mapping out the modern settlement ecosystem.
It's a big one today.
It is. We are going to thoroughly break down the definitive shift toward algorithmic vetting, what we are basically calling the 2026 scorecard.
Right.
We will dissect the exact financial targets required to run a scalable operation, the profound differences between obsolete remote technologies and modern AI-driven environments, and the very real operational friction points where digital perfection crashes into physical reality.
Which is where things always get messy.
Always. Finally, we are going to put you squarely in the hot seat with some intense real-world scenarios in our segment. Good question. What would you do?
It is a massive landscape to cover, but seeing how these elements all interlock, the compliance data, the financial margins, the artificial intelligence, and the physical legal execution, it's the only way to strategically position a business in this decade.
Absolutely. Let's start with that overarching shift to the algorithmic scorecard. As we established, the days of charming an escrow officer into giving you volume are essentially obsolete at the institutional level.
Yeah, those days are long gone.
The hiring and dispatching of notary signing agents is now dictated almost entirely by algorithmic grading.
Right, because title companies and national signing services are routing millions of documents through centralized platforms.
And they are doing this because of massive compliance mandates raining down from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and, secondary market giants like Fannie Mae.
Yeah, the origin of this shift is entirely about risk mitigation. Federal regulators and secondary market investors demand rigorous, mathematically verifiable oversight of third-party service providers.
Because an escrow officer's gut feeling about your competence doesn't hold up in a CFPB audit.
Exactly. It means nothing to them. Institutions need hard data to prove they are utilizing compliant vendors. And this regulatory pressure is really what gave rise to the platform health score.
Right. If you log into platforms like SnapDocs, you are immediately confronted with this health score, typically ranging from a 1 to a 5.
Yep, it's right there in your face.
But the architecture of this score is fascinating, and it is largely misunderstood. It isn't just a basic aggregate, a Yelp review for a restaurant.
Not at all.
One of the most critical structural elements of this score is that it only activates or becomes visible to the hiring parties after a notary completes at least 25 orders.
Which is a very specific, intentional number.
It is. So why that specific threshold? Why not activate the score after 5 flawless signings?
Because of the mathematics of statistical significance. The platforms are designed to protect the title company from variance.
Right.
If you complete 3 signings perfectly, well, that doesn't tell an algorithm anything meaningful about your long-term resilience or your consistency under end-of-month pressure.
Or your ability to handle complex trust documents versus just a really simple refinance.
Exactly. It could just be beginner's luck, or you happen to get 3 very easy assignments with highly cooperative borrowers.
Which happens.
Yeah.
But conversely, if your very first signing goes terribly because of an error entirely outside your control.
Say, a flat tire on the way to the appointment.
Right. A 3-order average would brand you as a massive risk. The platform waits for 25 orders because it needs enough raw data to prove that your performance is a reliable, predictable trend rather than just some statistical anomaly.
Yeah, once you cross that threshold, you have this rolling average defining your entire career. And the algorithm is relentlessly categorizing every single action you take, particularly your mistakes.
And the distinction the system makes between a critical error and a minor error is essentially the difference between a slap on the wrist and a career-ending event.
It really is.
Let's use a mechanical analogy here. A minor error is like a low tire pressure warning light on your dashboard. It is annoying, you have to pull over and deal with it, but the car is still running.
Right.
But a critical error is a blown engine block on the highway. The entire machine grinds to a catastrophic halt.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. A critical error is a fundamental failure of the notarial act itself.
Give us an example.
Well, for example, completely omitting your notary stamp on the deed of trust, or failing to properly verify the borrower's identity according to statutory requirements.
Which are huge.
The downstream consequence of a critical error is that the loan literally cannot fund. The entire financial transaction is completely paralyzed.
And the physical reality of fixing a critical error is just humiliating and costly. It typically triggers a full re-sign.
Oh, those are the worst.
The notary has to go back to the borrower, often a borrower who has already taken time off work and thought this highly stressful process was finally over, and redraw the entire loan package.
And then you have to sit down at the kitchen table again and execute the documents from scratch.
It creates massive friction, it angers the consumer, and it deeply damages the title company's relationship with their lending partner.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with a minor error. Let's say you are rushing, and you miss a single borrower initial on page 14 of a generic, non-notarized closing disclosure. Legally, the notarial acts on the critical documents are sound. The title company might just ask you to execute a correction affidavit or have the borrower digitally acknowledge the missed initial.
So it's totally fixable without a full re-sign.
Right. But, and this is the trap that catches so many experienced professionals, just because it is easily fixable does not mean the algorithm forgives you.
Wow. Because to the title company, the severity of the error doesn't matter as much as the administrative drag it creates, right?
Exactly. Every time an underwriter has to stop their workflow, draft an email, track down a correction, and update a file, that costs the institution time and money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lenders meticulously track error rates by signing service. They have entire dashboards dedicated to this exact metric.
And industry data clearly shows that signing services with an overall error rate creeping above 4% experienced client churn 2 to 3 times higher than those maintaining strict rates below 2%.
So what does the signing service do? They cannot afford to lose the lender, obviously. So they pass that immense pressure directly down the chain to the independent contractor. The algorithm ruthlessly penalizes your health score for that missed initial, dragging you down the vendor search ranking so you receive fewer offers.
I have to push back on this entire philosophical framework for a moment, though.
Sure.
I look at this ecosystem where an algorithm is dictating every piece of the workflow, assigning us health scores and grading us on fractional percentages. It feels dystopian.
It does feel very rigid.
If a machine is deciding whether we get to work tomorrow based on a missed initial, does the deeply human element of the notary signing agent even matter anymore? Or are we just meat widgets serving as physical extensions of an API?
I completely understand that fear. It is very common sentiment among veterans of the industry who really remember the old ways.
Yeah.
But the reality is actually the inverse. The human element matters significantly more now, precisely because the data filters out the unqualified baseline instantly.
So the algorithm is simply handling the tedious compliance filtering, so the title company doesn't have to spend hours verifying credentials.
Exactly. The algorithm is basically the bouncer at the door.
Okay, so if it's the bouncer, what exactly makes up that baseline requirement just to get inside the club?
Well, the baseline is incredibly stringent, established by industry heavyweights like the Signing Professionals Work Group, the SPW, and the American Land Title Association, ALTA.
Right.
Before your performance metrics are even considered, you have to pass a standardized background check. And the SPW screening isn't just a simple felony check, it is ruthless.
How so?
It assigns weighted points for various infractions, including financial red flags, suspended licenses, or even misdemeanor discrepancies. If you accumulate 25 violation points, you fail.
Wow. 25 points and you're out.
The algorithm locks you out of the national platforms entirely. You also have to hold and constantly prove a minimum of $25,000 in errors and emissions insurance.
And I know many premium services require up to $100,000 now.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I understand the dynamic correctly, the algorithm builds the arena and checks everyone's ticket at the door.
Yes.
But once you are inside the room with the borrower, facing a tense kitchen table dynamic where, maybe a spouse is confused about an interest rate or you're dealing with a language barrier, that is where the algorithm goes blind.
Yeah.
And your human competence is the only thing that wins the game.
Exactly. Because the machine cannot de-escalate a panicked first-time homebuyer.
Definitely not.
And the machine cannot read the room to ensure a signer isn't being subtly coerced by a family member standing over in the corner.
Right. The algorithm demands perfection on the paper, but only a human can manage the emotional and legal complexities of the physical signing table.
Spot on.
That brings us to a really fascinating pivot. If we look at this from a macro business perspective, there are harsh financial realities driving this algorithmic strictness at the top level.
Oh, absolutely.
The platforms are grading us, but the massive signing services and independent agencies are grading themselves against incredibly specific financial targets. Let's break down the actual financial machinery required to scale.
Yes, let's do it.
We are looking at the 7 key performance indicators, or KPIs, for an agency aiming for a $3 million revenue benchmark while maintaining a 40% internal rate of return in 2026.
These specific KPIs are incredibly illuminating, frankly, because they rip the curtain back on exactly how large signing services structure their operations.
And if you are an independent professional, you need to understand these metrics because your compensation and your treatment are entirely downstream effects of these agency-level financial goals.
Right. Think of these 7 KPIs like the vital signs of a hospital monitor for a corporate entity.
Yeah.
You might feel fine, your business bank account might seem temporarily flush with cash, but if you are ignoring the underlying ratios, like your customer acquisition cost or your payout ratio, it is the equivalent of ignoring sky-high blood pressure. You won't feel a thing until the business suffers a sudden, catastrophic collapse. We're going to take a quick pause for a commercial break, but don't go anywhere because we are unpacking those 7 vital signs right after this. Welcome back to Notary Knowledge. Let's unpack that first vital sign, KPI number 1, customer acquisition cost, or CAC.
Right.
The target benchmark for an agency in 2026 is keeping the cost of acquiring a new client below $150. But the data shows that spending $150 to acquire a client only makes mathematical sense if you're capturing institutional volume.
Correct. Let's say you spend $150 on targeted marketing, software integration, and aggressive sales outreach to land a new mortgage broker.
Okay.
If that broker only hands you one single $200 signing order for the entire year, you have effectively lost money after paying the notary and covering your operational overhead.
Yeah, that math does not work out.
Right. A sub $150 stake demands scale. You need to be acquiring partners who are consistently ordering 20 or more closings annually. The entire model is built on lifetime value, not one-off transactions. Which feeds directly into KPI number 2, gross margin percentage.
Yes.
The target here is massive. Agencies are aiming for a 750% gross margin, or roughly 75%, depending on how the accounting metric is categorized on the balance sheet.
It's a steep goal.
It is. And KPI number 6 is intimately tied to this, an EBITDA margin of 48%. Let's explain why EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, why is that the heartbeat of this operation?
Well, EBITDA is essentially the truest measure of your operational cash flow. It strips away all the non-cash accounting anomalies and tax structures.
Right, so it tells you exactly how efficiently your core business engine is running.
Exactly. To hit an operating profitability of 48%, you have to enforce extreme operational discipline. Every single line item matters.
Wow.
Because if that EBITDA margin dips below 40%, you just don't have enough cushion to weather market volatility.
Like a sudden spike in interest rates that freezes mortgage originations.
Right. If that happens and your margins are too tight, you are in immediate danger of insolvency.
So how do you maintain those massive margins in such a hyper-competitive environment? That brings us to KPI number 4, RON, revenue share.
This is a huge one.
It tracks the agency's shift toward remote online notarization. The survival goal is to exceed the 2026 baseline target of 250% growth in RON volume. Why is the digital pivot so absolutely critical to the financial survival of the business?
Because RON completely rewrites the unit economics of the industry. It provides a phenomenal margin uplift.
Think about the variable costs of a traditional mobile signing. Huh?
Exactly. The agency has to factor in the contractor's drive time, fluctuated gas prices, wear and tear on vehicles, and the physical printing and shipping costs of hundreds of pages of paper.
It adds up fast.
But digital services scale infinitely better because those physical limitations just vanish. An agency can conduct a closing in Florida using a notary sitting in Texas instantly.
Right, and because RON services carry significantly higher profit margins and drastically lower variable overhead, they shorten the payback period for that $150 customer acquisition cost incredibly fast.
Yeah, it's a game changer for profitability.
But the reality is that the industry hasn't completely digitized. Mobile signings still happen every single day.
Of course.
So if you are scaling an agency, you have to fiercely control the costs of those physical deployments, which leads directly to KPI number 5, the contractor payout ratio.
The strict target is keeping this ratio below 200% of revenue.
Because the financial projections show that without discipline, a variable cost could easily spiral to 295%, and this is exactly where businesses hemorrhage cash and die.
It is the ultimate trap for a growing service. You get a massive influx of orders, you panic to fill them, and you start paying independent contractors surge pricing just to get the files closed.
And suddenly you are charging the title company $200, but you are paying the notary $175 plus a $50 travel premium because it's a rural area.
Exactly. You are losing money on every single file. To protect the contribution margin, you absolutely have to cap contractor payouts.
So the benchmark strategy is a hard cap on standard mobile signing pay at $175.
Yes. You must ruthlessly audit travel reimbursements weekly, and you aggressively push your contractors and clients toward ARN jobs to bypass those variable travel expenses entirely.
There is also a time element to profitability, which is KPI number 3, billable hours utilization.
The target is maintaining over 80% productivity across your workforce.
And the data specifically points to an efficiency window for a standard refinance, which should take between 45 and 60 minutes to execute.
And this isn't just an internal agency metric. The national platforms track this down to the second.
Wait, really? Down to the second?
Yes, from the exact moment you open the digital package or check in to an appointment to the moment the scanbacks are uploaded and the status is marked complete, a silent timer is running in the background.
I have to ask, doesn't putting a stopwatch on a legal proceeding compromise the integrity of the act? If I know I'm being timed, I might rush a borrower through a complex disclosure.
That is the real tension of the job. But from the algorithmic perspective, if you are consistently taking an hour and a half on a standardized, routine refinance, it negatively impacts your platform ranking.
So the machine does not assume you are providing excellent, thorough customer service.
No, it assumes you are inefficient. It assumes that you either do not know how to navigate the documents or you fundamentally fail to properly prepare the borrower before sitting down at the table.
Wow. So it enforces preparation.
Exactly. You are supposed to have the package organized, flagged, and mentally mapped before the clock ever starts.
And finally, we arrive at the metric that governs all the others. KPI number 7, QA error rate.
The target is to keep this strictly below 10%, reviewed daily on a macro level.
Although, as we discussed with the critical and minor errors earlier, if you want to retain institutional clients, they really demand to see that error rate driven well below 2% to avoid churn.
And this ties the entire financial model back to the very first thing we discussed, the algorithm.
It is a closed loop.
Completely. You can have incredibly efficient margins, a low acquisition cost, and lightning fast execution times. But if your QA error rate spikes because your contractors are rushing, your agency's health score plummets.
And when the score plummets, the platforms choke off your order flow. And just like that, the $3 million revenue projection goes straight to zero.
We're going to pause right here for a quick sponsor break, and when we come back, we are pivoting to the tech stack. Welcome back to the show.
So we have spent a lot of time analyzing the financial machinery and the algorithmic scorecards. But none of this scale is possible without the digital infrastructure.
No, it relies entirely on the tech.
We need to transition from the financial metrics to the physical technology. We are currently operating in an era dominated by AI audits and comprehensive RON integration.
Right.
But to truly appreciate the sophistication of the tech stack in 2026, we really have to look backward. We have to examine the messy, chaotic evolution of remote notarization, specifically the crucial distinction between the old RAN protocols and modern ON platforms.
It is a vital historical distinction, and honestly, confusing the two can cost you your commission.
Easily.
RN, which stands for Remote Ink Sign Notarization, was essentially a massive emergency Band-Aid violently slapped onto the industry during the height of the global pandemic.
Because the real estate market was deemed essential, people couldn't leave their homes and the industry basically panicked.
Yeah, and the temporary RIN orders were incredibly clunky.
It was an absolute administrative nightmare. I remember the temporary RIN guidelines so clearly. You were dealing with 10 strict standards of practice that just felt completely disjointed.
Oh, they're awful.
A signer had to sit at their kitchen table with physical paper documents shipped to them and sign them in pen and wet ink while on a video call.
And you weren't using secure platforms. You were using generic, off-the-shelf software like Zoom, Skype, or WebEx.
Yeah, the notary had to act like a film director, instructing the signer to physically pick up their laptop or webcam and pan the camera 360 degrees around the room to legally prove no one was hiding, just off-camera coercing them.
It was pure theater. And after the signing, it got even worse.
Oh, right, the screenshots.
Yeah. The signer had to hold every single wet sign page up to the webcam so the notary could take a screenshot, and then the signer had to physically fax or securely scan the massive wet sign package back to the notary.
So the notary would receive this degraded, digitized file, print it out in their own office, physically apply their wet ink stamp and signature to the paper, and then ship it back to the title company.
And the security vulnerabilities were just astronomical.
Right, because how easy was it for a fraudster to hold up a highly realistic forged driver's license to a grainy 720p webcam over a bad Wi-Fi connection?
Dangerously easy. RIN completely lacked multi-factor biometric identity verification integrated into the signing process.
It was quite literally just a standard video call and a fax machine masquerading as a secure legal environment.
Hackers and organized fraud rings exploited those gaps aggressively. That is exactly why today, in 2026, states like Maryland, Virginia, and California wholly and aggressively reject RIN.
The temporary utility is completely dead.
Yes. Instead, the entire industry has firmly embraced RON remote online notarization. And the functional mechanical difference is profound.
Because RON is not a video call, it is a locked cryptographic environment.
Exactly. RON uses dedicated, hyper-secure platforms that integrate high-definition video conferencing, dynamic knowledge-based authentication, and biometric facial recognition.
And the electronic signing room, all built into one continuous, heavily audited digital session.
The documents are not physical paper being faxed back and forth. They're presented digitally in real time and signed electronically by both parties simultaneously, sealing the document with a tamper-evident digital certificate the exact moment the session ends.
Though it is incredibly important to note that while the technology itself is completely borderless, the statutory laws governing us are not.
That's a huge point.
The jurisdictional complexity is a massive friction point. For instance, states like Arkansas have incredibly rigid mandates stating that both the signer and the notary must be physically located within the sovereign borders of Arkansas during the entirety of the ON session.
Right. Whereas other states provide significantly more out-of-state flexibility, allowing a signer to be vacationing in Europe, provided the notary is physically sitting within their commissioned state jurisdiction.
And that precise jurisdictional complexity, combined with the sheer volume of daily closings, is exactly why human beings are no longer allowed to review documents alone.
They just can't keep up.
Right. AI-driven quality control has become an absolute mandate for any agency trying to hit those EBITDA margins we discussed earlier.
Let's dive into the mechanics of that. A prime example is DocMagic's auto prep technology.
Yeah, and this isn't just a basic template overlay where someone manually dragged and dropped a signature box onto a PDF.
No, this system utilizes patented artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze raw third-party PDFs instantly.
But how does a machine actually read a document it has never seen before?
It relies on advanced optical character recognition combined with spatial pixel analysis.
Sure.
When a completely foreign, unstructured document is uploaded by a lender, the AI visually scans it. It is trained on millions of historical documents to recognize the specific localized phrasing, the blank lines, and the formatting of a notary block.
That's incredible.
It instantly identifies every single signature line, initial region, and data collection field, and it categorizes them visually for the user.
Like the color-coded tags.
Yes. A red tag means the AI found a definitive signature line based on the visual context, but is currently unassigned to a specific human being.
So those red tags act as a hard stop. The system literally will not allow the package to proceed until they are resolved.
Exactly. A green tag means the AI has successfully and confidently assigned that signature line to a previously verified borrower profile.
And crucially, and this is where the AI actively prevents critical errors, the notary tags are hard-coded and locked.
Yes, that is a huge safety net.
If you select a tag from the notary section of the UI, it cannot be accidentally mapped to a borrower. You cannot inadvertently ask the consumer to sign on the notary's line, which used to be a massive category of user error in the old drag-and-drop systems.
Right, the AI eliminates that entire vector of failure right out of the gate. And this specific AI auditing infrastructure is what empowers signing services to enforce that strict 2-hour post-signing document audit requirement.
Because the human reviewer at the agency doesn't have to read all 150 pages.
Exactly. The system does the heavy computational lifting, instantly verifying that all required data collection fields are completed before the package is even finalized and routed to the title company.
Because, as we establish, if a minor error slips through and pushes the service's error rate above that 4% threshold, they lose the institutional client.
Right, and looking at the broader platform ecosystem operating in 2026, we see heavy hitters completely dominating the digital space. You have enterprise-level platforms like Proof and Blue Notary leading the charge for massive e-closing adoption.
And they are scaling so rapidly because their internal security architectures align perfectly with the newly updated ALTA Best Practices Framework, specifically version 4.2, and the companion identity verification guidance.
The core driver behind all this technological fortification is fraud, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We aren't just talking about a borrower accidentally signing the wrong line. We're talking about organized, malicious intent.
Completely. The industry is currently battling massive, coordinated spikes in highly sophisticated fraud rings.
We are seeing everything from FAFSA application fraud utilizing stolen student identities to deeply complex real estate forgery, where criminals are exploiting synthetic identities to attempt to sell vacant land or homes they do not legally own.
It's terrifying. And the layered biometric verification tools embedded deeply into platforms like Proof are the only defense mechanisms that underwriters and title companies actually trust anymore.
We also see the scheduling platforms themselves, like SnapDocs, enforcing incredibly rigorous compliance on the notary side. They aren't just taking your word that your license is active.
No, to get the coveted verified status, you undergo an intense 3-day verification process.
Right. The platform APIs are actively checking SSN traces, pinging county and federal criminal databases, and cross-referencing sex offender registries.
And on the operational front end, pre-closing quoting tools like Elko and Title Capture are allowing agencies to generate perfectly Tri-ID compliant title insurance quotes and seller net sheets around the clock, fully integrated into the settlement software.
The entire life cycle of the real estate transaction is interconnected.
It is.
But let's bring this down to the ground level for a moment. Let's look at the actual human being trying to operate in this web. As a notary signing agent, how are you practically supposed to juggle all these multiple independent platforms, SnapDocs, Proof, Blue Notary, plus dozens of proprietary signing service portals, without crossing your wires, missing critical push notifications, or letting an insurance credential lapse on one platform while it remains active on another?
It requires a paradigm shift. You have to stop treating your profile as a social media account and start treating your digital credentials like a highly sensitive, vital corporate asset.
You absolutely must maintain standardized, perfectly synchronized credentials across every single portal.
Exactly. The exact spelling and punctuation of the name on your SnapDocs profile must match the exact name printed on your state-issued bond and your E&O insurance declaration page.
Because if they don't match, the AI reading your uploaded documents flags it as a discrepancy.
Exactly. The OCR software is very literal. If a State Department issues your notary bond without clearly printing the commission number on the front, and you just upload the raw scan, the AI will reject it because it can't find the data string it's looking for.
Which means you need to possess the operational awareness to manually type that number onto the physical document before scanning and uploading it.
Yes, meticulous consistency across the entire tech stack is the only way to maintain that algorithmically vital, verified status everywhere simultaneously.
Let's take one more quick commercial break. When we return, we are leaving the digital utopia and getting into the physical, messy realities of paper, shipping, and the top operational errors. Don't go away. Welcome back to Notary Knowledge. So we have spent the first half of this mastermind deeply analyzing the algorithms, the financial ratios, and the artificial intelligence. But let's bring it violently back to the physical reality of the job.
It's time for Section 3, which is entirely about operational logistics and avoiding the pitfalls.
Right. Because even in 2026, despite all this digital utopia we just discussed, physical document handling paper, ink, and shipping envelopes remains a massive, deeply vulnerable part of the workflow.
And this physical intersection is where the vast majority of entirely preventable administrative errors occur. The friction always starts with pre-signing preparation.
The absolute golden rule of logistics is you never ever wait until the last minute to print the massive loan packages.
It is an open invitation for disaster.
It really is. Think about the mechanical points of failure in a consumer-grade dual-tray laser printer. A sudden paper jam, a drum unit failure, or a low toner cartridge can completely derail an entire closing if you haven't built in a time buffer.
And beyond just the act of printing, you must proactively analyze the PDF and confirm the exact printing instructions provided by the hiring party.
Do they require the entire package printed on legal-size paper?
Right. Or do they demand strict adherence to blue ink for signatures to easily differentiate them from photocopies? Or do they mandate black ink because their specific county recorder's scanning equipment rejects blue?
You have to know before you hit print. Furthermore, if you are physically printing paper, you are eventually physically shipping paper.
And the logistics of post-signing shipping involve highly specific, unyielding rules.
First, you should never be paying out of pocket for FedEx or UPS shipping. The hiring party must either provide the prepaid digital shipping label or at least provide their corporate account information for you to manually generate one.
And here is a crucial logistical tip that routinely trips up experienced professionals and creates massive liability. Never put your own personal home address or office address as the return address on the FedEx or UPS label.
You must always use the title company or the hiring party's address as the return address.
Let's walk through the exact nightmare scenario of why this matters.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Let's say you drop the package at a shipping center. There is a weather delay or a barcode error, and the package gets bounced back. If your home address is on the label, the courier drops that massive package of highly sensitive financial data on your front porch.
But you are out driving to 3 other signings.
Exactly. That package that's exposed to the elements
Okay.
and theft. Meanwhile, the title agency is desperately looking for it because the borrower's interest rate lock expires at 5:00 p.m.
Wow. The package needs to bounce back to the title agency's secure mailroom, not your empty house.
Then there is the deeply contested, frustrating issue of physical scanbacks. Many hiring companies want full scanbacks of the executed documents immediately after the signing appointment, so their internal teams can begin their quality control processes and initiate the funding wire before the physical paper arrives the next morning.
The massive friction arises when a company requests that you only scan back the critical documents, pulling out the deed of trust, the promissory note, and the notice of rate to cancel.
Oh, this happens all the time.
Some well-meaning notaries will sift through the 150-page package, pull out those 5 critical documents, scan them, and then spend 20 minutes of unpaid administrative time carefully restacking the physical package back into its precise, original chronological order before shoving it into the shipping envelope.
Which is incredibly inefficient and deeply devalues your time.
Right.
If a company demands selective partial scanbacks, the standard industry practice is to simply place the scanned critical documents directly on top of the physical stack before sealing them in the shipping envelope.
Do not waste your operational time restacking a physical package for free.
If they absolutely mandate that the physical package must be maintained in a precise original order while simultaneously demanding selective scanbacks, you are basically providing administrative assistant labor.
You need to negotiate compensation for that extra administrative time up front, or it will slowly bleed your hourly utilization rate.
Let's shift from the paper handling to the actual legal execution of the documents. Looking at enforcement guidelines from states like Michigan and data from the National Notary Association, there are top-tier errors that consistently lead to severe legal trouble, lawsuits, or rejected county recordings.
Mistake number 1, omitting the date in the notary block.
It seems like such a trivial, minor oversight. You stamped it, you signed it, you verified the ID.
But let's look at the chain reaction. The applicant dates their signature on the document, but the notary forgets to write the specific date they witnessed the signature inside their specific certificate block.
Right. When that document reaches the county recorder's office, the automated OCR software scanning the deed sees an empty field where a date should be.
The software flags it.
The county clerk rejects the entire legal instrument and sends it back. The property transfer fails to record.
The borrower's rate lock blows up, costing thousands of dollars in extension fees. And all of that liability flows directly back to the notary's E&O insurance policy over a single missing date.
Mistake number 2 is absolutely terrifying from a liability standpoint, leaving your notary tools and seals unsupervised.
You have to understand what a notary stamp actually is. It is not a decorative office supply. It is effectively a state-issued license to manufacture legal reality.
If you leave your physical seal sitting on an unattended desk or tossed in the center console of an unlocked car while you run into a gas station, you are inviting catastrophe.
Imagine someone steals that stamp and uses it to forge a quitclaim deed, fraudulently transferring ownership of an elderly person's paid-off home to a shell company.
You are legally liable because you failed to secure your commission. The industry claims data is full of quiet, out-of-court settlements and massive E&O insurance payouts entirely because a notary treated their seal carelessly.
Mistake number 3 is failing to require personal appearance. Whether it is physical, breathing presence in the exact same room, or secure, cryptographically verified virtual appearance through a compliant RN platform, the signer absolutely must be in front of you at the time of the execution.
You cannot notarize a signature based on a phone call. You cannot notarize a signature because you, quote, recognize their handwriting from previous deals.
And mistake number 4 is a subtle, incredibly dangerous psychological trap, making attestation statements.
Let's explain how this happens in the real world. A signer hands you a document, maybe a copy of their passport or a handwritten business contract, and they say, I need you to notarize that this is a true, exact copy of my original passport.
Or they ask, Can you notarize that the facts written in this statement are true so the judge will believe it?
It is human nature to want to help. But as a notary public, you do absolutely no fact-finding. You do not verify external realities.
You do not declare a document as a true copy unless your specific state statutes explicitly grant you that rare authority.
Your job is incredibly narrow and strictly defined. You verify the identity of the human being sitting in front of you, and you confirm that they applied their signature to the document of their own free will.
The moment you make an attestation statement verifying facts beyond your authorized capacity, you render the entire notarization invalid and expose yourself to unauthorized practice of law violations.
Which brings us to the final operational pitfall, and it touches on the nuances of human interaction, the ethics of compensation.
This issue is directly and explicitly addressed in the SPW Code of Conduct, specifically Guiding Principle 7 regarding fees.
It is a very delicate, often awkward social situation. You drive to a borrower's home in a rainstorm. You provide incredibly patient, excellent service. You guide them through a stressful process.
And as you are packing up your briefcase, the deeply grateful signer pulls out a $20 bill and offers you a tip for your trouble.
The ethical guidance on this is absolute. You should not accept tips from signers. The specific fee for your service was negotiated and contracted in advance with the signing service or the title company.
Accepting a cash tip blurs the ethical line of your required impartiality. You are an impartial witness, not a hospitality worker.
Furthermore, if you are executing loan documents in the context of a residential real estate transaction governed by the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, or RSFP, the flow of money is heavily regulated.
Accepting uncontracted, off-the-books money directly from the consumer at the table can be aggressively viewed by regulators as violating strict anti-collusion standards.
Or it can even be construed legally as an illegal kickback or unauthorized referral fee.
The process is rigid. You invoice the contracting corporate entity for the exact pre-negotiated fee, period.
Period. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have covered the theory, the algorithms, and the rules. But theory is easy until you are standing in the room. Welcome to our segment. Good question. What would you do?
This is where it gets real.
We are going to plunge you into 5 real-world, incredibly high-pressure scenarios derived directly from the legal, ethical, and operational standards of the trade.
These are the exact moments where the AI cannot save you, the algorithm goes dark, and your fundamental understanding of the law has to immediately kick in to protect yourself and the public.
These scenarios are the crucible. This is where theoretical knowledge is violently tested against human complexity and emotional pressure. Let's set the scene for scenario 1. Imagine you are Derek, operating in Nevada.
Okay. Derek in Nevada.
Derek receives an urgent, frantic call to rush to a hospital intensive care unit. A family is in crisis. They desperately need him to notarize a medical power of attorney for a patient, as well as a VP 136, which is a specific Nevada vehicle release power of attorney, so they can get a car out of a local tow yard that is racking up daily fees.
That's a high-stress environment.
It is. Derek arrives, navigates the sterile halls, and enters the ICU. But when he stands over the bed, he immediately notices the patient is heavily medicated on intravenous pain meds. The patient is groggy, drifting in and out of focus, and barely able to keep their eyes open. The family is standing right there, holding the pen, staring at Derek. What does Derek do?
This is a classic, terrifying capacity crisis. In any hospital or ICU setting, the notary must assess 2 distinct, non-negotiable elements: identity and capacity.
Identifying the signer is just the first step.
Right. The signer must possess the lucid mental capacity to fully understand what document they are signing, what rights they are transferring, and they must be signing it entirely of their own free will, without coercion.
If the signer lacks clear capacity due to heavy pain medication or trauma, the notarization absolutely must be halted immediately.
But put yourself in Derek's shoes. The psychological pressure in that room is immense. The family might be crying. They are bleeding money to a tow yard.
They urgently need that medical POA to make critical health decisions. They are going to beg Derek to just stamp the paper.
The emotional pressure of the family is entirely irrelevant to the cold reality of the law. If Derek caves to the pressure and proceeds, he is creating a legally fragile, easily contestable document, and he is exposing himself to immense personal liability if another family member later sues over the estate.
And it is vital to note the specific legal mechanisms at play here. A medical POA is typically an acknowledgement. The notary is confirming identity and willingness.
But an affidavit, or certain sworn state forms require a jurat. A jurat means the signer must actively take a verbal oath or affirmation, swearing to the truthfulness of the document under penalty of perjury.
A heavily medicated, semi-conscious patient cannot meaningfully take an oath. Derek must firmly refuse the notarization.
He must compassionately advise the family to step out into the hallway and speak with their legal counsel or a hospital social worker about pursuing alternative guardianship or emergency court orders because notarial capacity simply cannot be established.
Scenario 2 takes us across the country to Sophie, operating in New York. Sophie is hired to meet a signer at a coffee shop. The signer presents Sophie with a deeply personal, fiercely handwritten letter regarding a bitter, ongoing property line dispute between neighbors. The signer is angry and wants to escalate the situation. They ask Sophie to notarize the signature on the letter, but they make a specific demand. They want Sophie to explicitly state in her written notary block that the contents of the letter, the accusations about the neighbor stealing land, are the absolute truth.
This scenario goes right back to the exact attestation statement violation we discussed earlier, which is explicitly prohibited in state guidelines like those in New York and Michigan.
Sophie's sole limited statutory function is to verify that the angry person sitting across the table is indeed the person named on the ID, and that they signed the handwritten manifesto of their own free will.
She is an authenticating witness to the signature, not a private investigator validating the narrative.
She simply cannot validate the truthfulness of the property dispute, no matter how convincing the signer's story is.
Exactly. The very moment a notary writes, "I certify the facts in this letter are true," they have stepped wildly outside the boundaries of their commission.
They have effectively invalidated the notarial act and practiced law without a license.
Sophie must calmly explain her strict statutory limitations to the signer. She must offer to apply a standard acknowledgement certificate or a jurat certificate to the signature only, allowing the signer to swear their own oath to the contents. But she must absolutely refuse to personally attest to the contents of the document herself.
Scenario 3 plunges us into an increasingly common friction point. Tyler is in Georgia. Tyler arrives at a standard, high-value real estate closing. He sits down, opens his journal, and asks the signer for their ID.
Standard procedure.
But the signer immediately refuses to provide a standard government-issued identification like a driver's license, state ID, or passport. Instead, the signer aggressively claims sovereign citizen status, declaring they do not recognize state or federal government authority.
Oh boy.
The signer slides a homemade, self-laminated ID card across the table, complete with a thumbprint and a pseudo-legal declaration, and demands Tyler accept it.
Tyler has to shut this entire transaction down immediately.
Okay.
There are two overlapping layers of authority commanding him to refuse this.
First, from the institutional platform and title company perspective, LTA best practices and the biometric ID verification standards heavily dictate that only state-approved, verifiable identification is acceptable.
Second, from a pure statutory perspective, a homemade, unverifiable ID card carries absolutely zero legal weight for establishing identity.
There is no room for debate or gray area here.
Yeah.
Like you can't just accept it because it has their picture on it.
None whatsoever. A notary must strictly and rigidly adhere to identifying signers through specific statutory channels, which universally means utilizing unexpired government-issued identification that contains a photograph, a physical description, and a signature.
A sovereign citizen badge, a library card, or a gym membership does not meet any state's statutory threshold for a real estate transaction. The notarization must be flatly refused.
Furthermore, Tyler must meticulously document the interaction, the specific type of homemade ID presented, and the exact reason for the refusal in his official journal to create an airtight defensive record.
Let's move the friction into the digital realm with Scenario 4. Nina is operating in Virginia. She logs into a highly secure, enterprise-level RON session.
Okay, Ron in Virginia.
The video connects smoothly, the audio is clear, and the signer has successfully passed the biometric credential analysis. But the second the session begins, the signer holds up a physical piece of paper to their webcam. It is the deed, and they have already signed it in blue wet ink. The signer smiles at the camera and tells Nina, "I wanted to save us some time. I already signed it. Just apply your digital seal to your side of the screen, merge the files, and we are done."
This represents a fundamental, critical misunderstanding of what RON actually is. The signer is likely operating on lingering, confused habits from the old, temporary pandemic RIN days.
Nina absolutely cannot apply her digital cryptographic seal to a blank platform document to accompany a wet-signed piece of paper.
Because true remote online notarization platforms fundamentally require an integrated, fully electronic signing room. You can't bridge the physical and digital worlds like that.
Precisely. Unlike the chaos of RIN, where a wet ink document was signed on camera and then faxed back and forth, RIN requires the entire document lifecycle to exist digitally within the platform's secure ecosystem.
The unsigned digital document must be presented on the screen. The signer must electronically apply their signature in real time inside the recorded audiovisual session, while Nina actively watches the digital keystrokes or mouse clicks occur.
You simply cannot mix a physical wet signature executed in the real world with a digital notary seal applied to a blank PDF in the platform.
Nina must halt the process, instruct the signer to upload the pristine, unsigned digital file to the platform, and they must execute the entire process electronically from start to finish.
Our final scenario, Scenario 5, is perhaps the most logistically challenging. Leo is in Indiana. Leo is hired to notarize critical legal documents for an incarcerated individual at a maximum security county detention center.
That's a tough environment to navigate.
It is. He navigates the metal detectors, gets through security, and is placed in a visiting room. But the facility has strict contraband and physical contact rules. The facility guards strictly restrict what the inmate can physically hold.
Okay.
The inmate cannot hold Leo's personal pen, and they certainly cannot hold, touch, or sign Leo's physical notary journal. Leo realizes he has a massive problem. How is he supposed to satisfy his mandatory journal signature requirements under these unyielding physical constraints?
Jail, prison, and detention center notarizations are highly specialized environments. Facilities like the Clark County Detention Center or various Indiana state penitentiaries have extreme, non-negotiable security protocols that supersede standard civilian workflows.
If the inmate physically cannot sign the journal due to facility rules or physical barriers like thick glass, Leo must adapt using specific state allowances designed for these exact extreme environments.
Indiana has very specific journal recommendations for this, correct? How does he prove he was there without the signature?
Yes. While obtaining the physical signature in the journal-bound book might be physically impossible due to the facility's rigid rules, Leo must over-document the surrounding context to compensate.
He needs to create an unassailable narrative record.
He must record the exact date and time. He must log the highly specific document type, whether it's a financial power of attorney or a sworn court affidavit. He must write the printed name of the signer.
And crucially, he must document exactly how the signer was legally identified. Often in a jail setting, a standard driver's license has been confiscated by booking.
So Leo may have to legally rely on an oath from a credible witness, such as a sworn identified detention officer, or he may rely on the facility's official identifying wristband and printed booking sheet if state law explicitly permits that substitution.
He must painstakingly write all of these facility constraints, the physical barriers, and the alternative identification methods in the additional comments section of his journal to create an airtight, legally defensible record of exactly why a standard journal signature is absent.
These 5 scenarios brilliantly prove a core point about where we are in 2026. While the entire macro industry is increasingly driven by automated algorithms, platform timers, and AI document scanning, the actual physical execution of the law requires an incredibly sharp, deeply human legal mind.
Absolutely.
Which leads me to a profound thought I want to leave you with as we wrap up this mastermind session. As artificial intelligence, like Doc Magic's AutoPrep, reaches a point of sophistication where it can literally predict our administrative errors before we even make them, where it perfectly locks the signature tags and audits the data fields in real time, what is the core, irreplaceable human element of the notary public?
It is the defining question of our profession's future.
The answer is that it's not just about applying a rubber stamp or clicking a digital seal anymore. The algorithm can do the math perfectly. The AI can verify the PDF formatting flawlessly.
But neither the algorithm nor the AI can stand in a sterile ICU room, look into the eyes of a heavily medicated patient, and accurately determine if that vulnerable human being truly understands the fundamental rights they're about to sign away.
The human notary is the ultimate, irreplaceable gatekeeper of societal trust.
The digital software facilitates the speed of the transaction, but the human being standing at the table protects the vulnerable and ensures the absolute integrity of the law.
If you found yourself stumped by any of the legal mechanics in the scenarios today, or if you are currently dealing with a complex, high-pressure issue in your own daily practice, we want to hear from you. Email your questions to Derek@dereksproul.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
We rely heavily on your real-world ground-level experiences to keep these strategic discussions sharp, practical, and highly relevant to the community.
Exec producer Derek Sproul, lead writer Marylyn Trotter, graphics Eddie Montes Travis, music Thomas Bynum, produced by Magnificent Works Business Solutions.
Don't just be listeners of the knowledge.
Be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Know the notary laws and safeguard your notary business. Introducing the book, Notary Law and Liability, Understanding State Regulations, Insurance, and Avoiding UPL by Derek Sproul. What you don't know can destroy the notary business you've been building. Get your copy of Notary Law and Liability by Derek Sproul from Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Books of Million, Bookshop.org, Mobile Notary by DerekSproul.com, or download from Kindle today.